Hello, everyone. I am very excited. I'm talking to Nikki Ivey today. Nikki, thanks for talking to me today.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Nice. Well, just to let everybody know, Nikki, she's a brand influencer. She is an international speaker. She's a client success coach. She really empowers sales professionals, women, leaders. She's a top voice on LinkedIn, and that's how I found her and found her content inspiring. So, Nikki, again, thank you so much. And, I kind of wanted to start off. Can you share? I know I did a little introduction, but share a little bit of everything you're doing because it seems like you're doing a lot.
I am doing the most. No, I am. And, that's because I just found myself unable to, focus if it meant I had to ignore the bigger picture.
Okay.
So it can put me at a disadvantage sometimes because folks are like, how can you be an expert in this and in that at the same time and be great at both? And I'm like, favor ain't fair. No, the true answer is I'm not successful when I don't feel like I'm able to live out my purpose. And my purpose, right, is to fight for fairness and mental health in the world in general, but in particular within workplace and sales culture. So the work I'm doing now, as you mentioned, is speaking and inspiring folks in terms of, like I just talked about, right? What we can do, how empowered we actually are to change the environment around us, and particularly to impact the experiences that the people that we work with are having. And so that includes, I am a client success coach at Stimulyst. Stimulyst is a business accelerator for women consultants and entrepreneurs. And it was born because the founder, Liz J. Simpson, she came across this number, and it was 12%. And that is the number of women-owned businesses that ever clear 100K, ever clear six figures annually. And she just wasn't okay with that, right? And neither am I.
Yeah.
So getting to sit across from these women every day and hear their passion for their businesses and their brilliance, right, and their expertise, it's really a blessing, especially because, like, to the answer to the broader question, who even am I and what do I do? I'm a salesperson at heart, right? It's what most of my career has been. And it's one of the biggest skill gaps for folks who are starting small businesses or who are starting to consult. So being able to give these women the language and the strategy, right, and the processes to be able to show up in a way that is going to earn them, to be part of that 12% and beyond.
Yeah, I did not know that was only 12%. And um, I think it's so important. Sales is a skill, obviously, for everyone. I mean, CEOs, founders, any role, actually, even accountants, anybody internally in a company. I mean, being able to connect with people, influence, I think so important. So again, obviously, as I said, I've been inspired by your content, how you're trying to empower other people. I like talking broadly about corporate culture, and I know you talk about culture. What do you feel companies right now are doing very well when it comes to culture? And what do you see companies not doing very well? And just your overall take on that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'll start with the not doing well.
Okay.
What most folks are getting wrong in the broadest sense is accountability.
Hmm.
And part of that, in fairness, is because the technology and the study, the research hasn't caught up to, like, okay, how do we measure success? Because you need, especially as a salesperson, I know this, right? You need to be able to measure something in order to be able to hold yourself accountable to it. So in fairness, yes, they're getting that part wrong, but it's not entirely their fault, right?
Yeah.
But the other accountability piece is something that, we can absolutely impact. And that's when we say I'm a leader of a sales team,
Okay.
and I am constantly hearing, right, boys will be boys, water cooler talk, right? And I can see, right, in the faces, the eye rolls
Good.
of some of the women on my team that, they don't like it. It's offensive, right? Accountability would mean me holding those folks accountable. But what happens far too often is, like I mentioned, boys will be boys, right? Or whatever, what have you group. That in the onus then is put on the person who is on the receiving end of whatever the microaggression is, to assume positive intent or let this slide and all of this. So what these leaders could improve on certainly is that aspect of accountability. Now, as far as what many are getting right, it's facilitating conversations between folks who are, underrepresented or underestimated in whatever this profession is or whatever workplace it is that we're talking about. And funding their employee resource groups, right? So that these folks can, be able to have to gather and talk about the things that they're experiencing in safe spaces. So many companies that I know of who are getting it right, that facilitating and funding, honestly, time and space for folks to come together and talk and heal and make connections around these experiences. I've seen that be one of the more impactful things that folks are doing.
Well, interesting. I mean, I definitely agree that companies that are facilitating and encouraging these conversations, that's so important. But I did want to ask, if somebody hears, you said boys will be boys, like a conversation, water cooler talk, and they feel something's inappropriate or offensive or something that shouldn't have been said. When somebody hears that, from your opinion, is there a best practice? I mean, do you go and call that person out right there and then, or do you wait a little bit, or do you reach out to HR? I mean, what is a best practice?
I think and listen, this is not my professional opinion. My expertise is not in HR and employment law, but from experience and as a person who studies culture, I always opt for, as a first step, whatever that option is that gives each person in the situation their dignity, right? That's like, it's important to me to keep that intact. And so that means, no, it can't involve me, calling someone out in front of their peers for something that they've said that was offensive. It's like, not as a first step, especially, right? So the conversations with leadership need to be private. They need to be swift. This is not something that, you're put off. So as the employee in the situation, generally speaking, I do try and follow some chain of command, right? I try and reach out to my leader first, the person I report to first, and see if we can't just manage it then and there, because a lot of the time it's just that the person who was committing the microaggression probably didn't even know what a microaggression was. You know what I'm saying? So they just need that language. And most of the time, once they find out that something that they're doing or saying, or way that they're behaving is, causing harm or distress to someone that they work with, most people don't want to keep doing that thing. So a lot of the time you can nip it in the bud with that. But again, if that's not happening, if I go to my manager and the response, rather than, okay, we'll have that conversation, this is really important, if the response is, oh, well, maybe you didn't mean it that way, that's when we have to start thinking about other recourse, right? That's when, we'd start talking to HR. But my goal and my hope is always to head those types of things off with, like I said, with actually connecting to each other.
Yep. Well, all right. Yeah, I'm a big believer in having conversations, meaningful conversations, connecting, giving people their dignity. So, and I also I love LinkedIn. I see you on LinkedIn. I see you're a top voice and influence others. Any advice you have for professionals, whether they're a little more shy on LinkedIn, or even people that are a little more advanced? I'm just curious. Any Nikki tips?
Well, so the tip would depend on what your goal is, right? So if your goal is to create a community, right? You are working towards some solopreneur thing, and you want to build sort of a groundswell around you and your expertise. then that needs to be obvious. The expertise needs to be the thing that you are leading with, but not just in a way that's, hey, here's all the things I know. It's
Okay.
breaking down concepts, right?
Okay.
So, and it doesn't have to be difficult. So it can be something like, here are 5 ways, right, to do X, Y, Z, right? So 5 copywriting tips for sales account executives,
Yes.
right? And when I mention the sales account executive, that takes me into the next piece that's important, and that's your niche. So once you decide what your purpose is, then deciding specifically who you think is going to get the most value out of whatever it is that your expertise or your passions are, then you have to start to intentionally build a network of those folks. I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong. A lot of people, they put too much emphasis when they're starting out on the engagement that they get on any single piece of content that they post on LinkedIn, right? When the truth is, for a long time, nobody's going to see it and they're not going to care. That's just how the algorithm works, right? But what is valuable, is those couple of people that are going to interact with it, but more specifically, right? Shift your emphasis and your energy from trying to get engagement on a single post into, okay, I am wanting to connect with, say, like I said, AE SaaS sellers, right? SaaS AE. But my network, right, my LinkedIn connections is made almost entirely of other sales leaders that I used to work with. So I can talk about the expertise, but I'm talking about it in a way that I would to my peers, and not in the way that I would to people who I'm trying to teach and inspire. So then just finding those people and connecting with them. I would max out my LinkedIn connection allowance. I think they let you connect with like 100 people in a day, and just be intentional about the organizations these people work for, their job title, and one of my favorite pieces, the little talks about filter. That's in one of the new sales nav features, right? And then you're going to find people who talk about and think about and are passionate about the same things as you. And then that's when these other things are even going to start to matter, right? The content and all of that. So have an idea of what you want to impact at the industry level. Have an idea of, how that thing you want to impact shows up in the individual lives and work days, right, of this specific group of people, and then give them actionable strategy to get better at their job, right? And to ultimately just be more fulfilled in the work that they do.
All right. Yeah, I took a few notes on the importance of sharing about your industry, your passion, really leaning into your expertise, breaking things down, and then your audience itself. It's in networking, the importance of it. It's not just your peers, but really thinking about that and growing it. So it seems like you're really maximizing the combination of your content, your influence, and keep growing your network with that.
Yeah, I do want to say one more thing though, because I don't want to. I think that there is a level of vulnerability that, especially when you're talking about expertise, because a lot of time you're talking about expertise, it puts out the perception that you never failed at the thing that you're an expert at. So to the greatest extent that you can, right, communicate that authenticity and that vulnerability, because that's what's going to make this community that you've built around, your expertise and your messaging, it's going to make that sticky, right? They're going to want to keep coming to you because they feel like they can take a deep breath and be understood.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, sharing the good, the bad, and just making yourself authentic and a real person. I think that's obviously important. I guess last question to you is just when it comes to professional growth. I mean, I feel like I talk to a lot of people that are feeling stagnant. They're nervous getting out of their comfort zone. Advice for those. I mean, just your general thoughts on that.
I follow a framework. It's mindset, moxie, and magic.
Mindset, moxie, magic. Okay.
I came up with this just to name, right? Okay, Nikki, you are at a place you don't want to be career-wise, right? You've got this place that you want to get to. What needs to change first, right? What's missing first? And ultimately, it always comes down to like my mindset, what I believe I can do, right? What I believe is possible for me and for my life. And for a lot of folks, especially if you're dealing with a job loss in terms of your professional career, then that can be the hardest part. So focus on the mindset first. That is what's going to make everything else matter. Once you fix your mindset to believe that good things can and will happen for you, now you just have to have the guts, right?
Yeah.
Put yourself out there. That's this moxie piece, right? Which would have been infinitely more difficult if we hadn't switched, right, the mindset first. So we're in the moxie and we're taking action. And part of that is deciding, all right, I'm going to put a video out on LinkedIn. I don't know these people. They might not like it at all, but here we are because I believe that good things can happen. And that last piece, that magic, that is the community that I'm talking about, right? So you've changed your mindset to believe that good things will happen. You've tapped into your moxie to be able to put yourself out there. And then you've created magic in drawing people to you into that community. And if done right, if done sincerely, it feeds itself, it builds itself, and it multiplies itself. And that's really what we're talking about at the end of the day, right? Impacting culture in a larger way than ourselves or than any of us could do on our own.
Yeah, I love that framework. I'm a believer in an abundance mentality versus a limited mentality. I see a lot of people having that fear, like, oh my God, if I share this, will I be judged? Will someone try to steal my ideas or connections? And I feel like it's just, but you're right, you have a growth positive mindset and you have the guts to get things out there. I do believe in time and you're consistent that magic and organic opportunities happen. So, all right. Well, I guess my last, anything else, any other projects or anything you're excited about working on the horizon? You can share.
Okay. Yes. So I filmed 4 episodes of little web series I'm putting out just called Any Given Sales Day.
Okay.
It's
Nice.
anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge sports fan, especially NFL football. I'm devastated as a Cowboys fan. We don't have to talk about it. But anyway, I've always been fascinated by the parallels between what it takes to be successful as an athlete and as a team, a sports team, and what it takes to be successful as a seller and a sales team. And I think that when we tap into that, there is this wealth of inspiration and motivation that we find when we look at what some of our favorite athletes, right, have done. The other part of what we're talking about on this show is as spectators, right?
Yep.
As children and growing up, how did particular events in sports build something in us, right? Like, what did we see that made us say, hey, I'm going to do that, right? For me, it was Dominique Dawes at the Olympics. Right. I saw that and I was like, oh, we can do anything. If this little Black woman can do flips on this thing, we can do anything. So it has these ripple effects in so many different parts of our lives and in our careers. So like I said, 4 episodes have already been shot.
Nice.
If you look at my LinkedIn, there's a little preview of it. And I am looking at interviewing my father-in-law next, who is a Yankee fan and a Cowboys fan. So the most hated fandoms, but just a wonderful person. And he happens to be a high school football coach, right?
Okay.
So he's aware of these skills these life skills that you can get from learning. And I'm going to talk about how you apply those in sales.
Love it. Well, congratulations on Any Given Sales Day there. So, well, listen, Nikki, I really appreciate you taking the time. And I just like having short conversations, and I feel like you give some really good energy and insight. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. This was fun.
All right. Take care, Nikki.